Good morning, everyone. It is the day after, the night before Halloween, of course, and everybody's in a sugar coma. Certainly in my household, we ended up with bags and bags and more bags and more bags of candy. I probably need to do a trade with my kid where I buy the candy from them so I could throw the candy in the trash. Anyway, Mr. Photon is here and it's all about the weather.
Good morning, Liz.
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. I do not have the sugar hangover yet, but I may have one tomorrow. We'll see. So, today we're going to talk about weather modification and weather weapons. And we're going to focus in on particularly a storm that happened last week that was devastating in Mexico. And there wasn't really any media coverage on it. And it was very suspicious qualities to the hurricane itself. And I know a lot of people that were there with firsthand accounts, and I've been following it quite closely. But first, I would like to go into the history of this a little bit and probe some of that. So, a lot of people actually, we should first bring in someone that's going to help us in this probe, and that is Nikola Tesla. If you can bring him in,
Oh, wow. Okay, yes, I have him here.
and that'll make sense later on in the video. How's he doing today?
Great. He's so happy that he's here with us.
Perfect. So, what I have on the screen right now is a government document. Actually, it's from General Electric. 1947, General Electric and the United States government, they started a program called Project Cirrus. And it was to study hurricanes and actually see if they could modify hurricanes, control them, steer them, make them stronger. And they actually did do that. What happened was there was a hurricane that was starting, and they seeded the clouds with. So they drove they flew a plane close to this hurricane that was forming. They dropped a payload of silver iodide into the hurricane, and then they observed it. And what happened was it got stronger, and they also steered it in a certain direction, changed direction, and actually the hurricane ended up slamming into Georgia at the time. And I believe this actually did make the news, and they had to do some damage control from that. So, can we probe? I don't know. I guess General Electric and maybe even the United States Air Force, and see if this was what they were trying to do there, because we have the documents, so it did happen.
Oh, okay. Do you want to ask Tesla or you want me to get the US Air Force?
Let's ask both of them. I mean,
Okay.
we have Tesla here. Can you ask him if they were successful in controlling this hurricane or affecting this hurricane back in 1947?
Controlling the hurricane. No, they were studying how to control it.
Okay. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and so they weren't successful at. I mean, they did drop a payload according to this document into it, so they didn't have any effect on it.
They've done this many times before.
Okay. Yeah, and that's what I've researched as well. This is the first documented one that we've been able to find. So, can we pull in then the Air Force?
Yes. Okay. I have the Air Force.
And they were responsible for Project Cirrus.
Yes, it was our own project. Yes.
And were they successful in modifying this hurricane or affecting it in some way?
Okay. Not this particular study. That was really just to learn how it moved. They were trying to gather like a lot of mathematical probabilities so that they could manipulate it in the future.
Okay, there was another big hurricane that people suspect. I think might have been in the 60s. It was called Hurricane Betsy. Can you? It was the first. It was a hurricane that caused billions of dollars of damage in the United States. It was one of the worst hurricanes in modern times, I think, up until that point. Can you ask the Air Force if they had any hand in modifying that hurricane?
Yes.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, that was the suspicion out there. And I should say that I watched a great video, which I'm referencing a lot of this information from, that I watched on actually Odyssey, or no, it was on YouTube, and it's called the Maui fires, and maybe we'll put it in the links below. But there's a great. I'm going to look into more of her videos because she did a great job in compiling some of this information. Okay, so the other document that I have that was mentioned in there is this one. Yes. So this is again a government document, and you can see on the right there, hurricanes and forest fires. So
Oh.
they were, the government has been involved in trying to modify these two things according to this document, to use them as, I guess, weapons. So can you ask the Air Force, if they also involved in using forest fires as a weapon?
They can do, yes.
And have they done that in the United States?
No.
No. Okay. And obviously, we just learned they did do it with hurricanes, Hurricane Betsy. How many hurricanes have they modified in North America?
That were headed for North America. Dozens.
Dozens. Okay. Okay. So I want to first, let's look at the hurricane that I want to look at because it's very suspicious. So for those of you who are not aware, on today's October, or sorry, November 1st, I believe it was the 24th of October last week, there was a tropical storm in the Pacific Ocean in the morning, and it was, headed up the Pacific towards, like the Pacific coast of Mexico. And by the middle of the day, it looked like it had turned into a hurricane, like a category 1, 2. And it was heading for kind of the area of like Ixtapas, Zihuatanejo, which is kind of in between Acapulco and Puerto Vallarta. And within a few hours that evening, it quickly turned into like a category 3, or even they thought maybe a 4 out of nowhere. And there was people that are monitoring this that are meteorologists online, and they were looking at this like, how did our models miss this? So it was going to hit. Their models predicted that it would hit at 6 a.m. But in fact, it actually early in the morning, it switched direction quickly and turned into a category 5 out of nowhere. This means like 200 winds, and it slammed directly into Acapulco like a direct hit without warning. So everybody that lived in Acapulco had no idea this was coming. It was not on the news. They were going to bed, at 10 o'clock at night. And I think like 1 in the morning, they were woken up to this craziness. The other crazy thing that you're going to see here is if you look at this wind that you see on the screen here, there's no rain. And so I have people that I know that were on the ground, and they said it was the weirdest thing they'd ever seen. They've been in hurricanes before, and there was, besides the storm surge at the ocean, there was no rain. It was like a gigantic 20-mile tornado. Now, this is very unusual because, as you know, hurricanes form over the ocean, and they bring up moisture from the ocean, and they carry that inland, and you get a ton of rain. I mean, it's very weird. So the degree to which it increased from like a category, a tropical storm to a category 5 in no time. I mean, people that live in like Florida know that, usually, the hurricane's coming and you have time to board up your windows. You might have a day or two, or, they might see it coming for a while. Nobody saw this coming. All the models did not see this coming at all. So this was either a freak of nature, or maybe there was some foul play there. So can we ask Tesla what happened with, this is Hurricane Otis, by the way. Was was there any intervention into this hurricane by man?
Yes, a lot of manipulation. Yes.
Okay.
It actually got out of control.
Yeah, it
They
was.
were just trying to crank it up a little bit, and it just, yeah, it got out of control.
Okay, so now who was behind this? Was this the United States Air Force, or was this a different country?
This is in the United States Air Force. No.
Was it the
United
Mexican?
States? No, it's not the United States.
Was it Mexican? Mexican Air Force?
Is it the Mexican Air Force? I feel like it's the Mexican authorities. Yes.
Okay, so this is also what is suspected, that Acapulco. So let's give some history behind Acapulco. So, back in like the 50s, 60s, and 70s, it was one of the most popular places to visit for the rich and famous. It was actually one of the first places that people started to travel to once air travel got very popular. And so it was, for a long time, it was like a paradise of like rich folks traveling there. In recent times, it's kind of gotten like, there's a lot of, how should I say, like low income there now. And like, it's not the same kind of place it used to be. And within Mexican politics, and I'm not an expert at this, so forgive me if for our Mexican listeners or anybody that knows more than I do about this, the culture. I believe that Acapulco is seen as like it's not a friendly place for a lot of Mexicans. Don't really like Acapulco anymore. Like the rest of Mexico doesn't like that area. The state in which it's in is like a poorer state in relative to other states around. And the theory is, or the rumor is that they would like to rebuild Acapulco and turn it back into a more rich place with a lot of money. And even if you look at a lot of the investors there, there's big money. Like one of the billionaires in Mexico, Carlos Slim, I believe, he's invested a whole bunch of money in trying to improve the infrastructure in order to rebuild Acapulco. And the rumor is that they want to kick a lot of the people that live there out. They want to gentrify that area and bring in more high class stuff. And the circles that I run in, there's speculation that this was done on purpose in order to get the quote unquote undesirables out of the city. The other thing they wanted to do with Acapulco is there's plans to make it a 15-minute city, which is like a smart city as well. And so this could also be a way for them to do that. So can we pull in, I guess, the Mexican authorities that would have been behind this?
Yes. The Mexican authorities that were behind the hurricane. Okay, I have them. It's a very small amount of people.
Now, so were there intentions to target Acapulco with this hurricane to like get people they don't want out of the city?
Was this to get people out? No, it was really about, was it to get people out of the city that you don't want there? I mean, partially, but it was also about like massive insurance claims.
Oh, now I
Yeah.
know you can't get earthquake insurance there for sure because they do have a lot of earthquakes. But I was unsure if you could get hurricane insurance because they don't really have big hurricanes there. They might get like a category 1 or 2 every once in a while, but they usually skip Acapulco and they go up the coast further. So
Yeah, this was also to just rebuild as well. I mean, ultimately, the knock on effect is when you regenerate an area, it becomes very expensive. The prices go up. The what they deem as the undesirables, they are forced to move out because they can no longer afford to live there. I mean, the knock on effect is yes. Was it the immediate reaction? No. It was more of, they understand how things work, the psychological aspects behind this. And what is interesting is, how they actually manipulate these things. They have a ship. This is so crazy. they have a ship that has some sort of device, and they drive, or they float over to where the storm is, and they get sort of in the middle of it, and they manipulate the eye. So by sending out frequencies from within the eye, it can speed up or slow down the storm. uh, Obviously, if it's a major storm, then a boat cannot, or a ship cannot go into it. But with a small storm like this, they actually went into it, manipulated the eye of it, but they didn't intend for it to do this much damage.
Wow. Okay. Was this like the first time they'd done this in the Mexican authorities, or was this is that why?
Is that the first time you've done this? I mean, to this level, yes.
Okay.
And they didn't know really what they were doing.
Wow. Okay. That kind of gets me into the next part that I wanted to cover is the technology behind it. So what I've come across is like in the early days, they would, cloud seed these hurricanes and drop payloads into them. But in modern times, the theory is that they are exactly what you say. They're using electromagnetic frequencies to steer the storms. So
Oh,
one such example of this is a company out of South Africa, I believe, and they're on a television here talking about how they're using electromagnetic frequencies to steer the Gulf Stream gently. So I guess we've established now that they're kind of doing the same thing. But I didn't know if we would get right to the point so quickly. We'd have to delve a bit further. So there are people on in the private sector that are doing this sort of stuff for not weapon related stuff. But the stuff that they are using for weapons, the theory is that they are using Doppler radar in some cases. And what that this is a map of Doppler radar, specifically NextRad in the United States. And there's satellite evidence that I've seen where these Doppler radars are putting out energy and the clouds are moving towards them. And then also, just so people know, that's what a Doppler radar looks like. You've probably seen them around. And
oh,
now, can we ask Tesla if Doppler radar is being used to steer or modify weather?
is the Doppler radar being used to? No, no, it really is just a measurement. The things that modify the weather, they're not really placed around areas where people notice them.
Okay. So,
They actually have like some sort of tower thing that can extend itself and rise up and manipulate the weather.
where is this located in the United States?
Where are these located? A lot around Alaska. I'm getting very remote areas of the United States.
So this isn't an ionosphere heater, is it?
What, the thing that they manipulate with?
Yes.
Is it an ionosphere heater? It has that capability, yes.
Is HARP one of those installations in Alaska? I think that's where.
Oh,
I think it's in Alaska. I'm pretty sure.
is HARP one of those installations? No, these are more like military. What the specific thing that I'm talking about is it's a military thing. And actually, it's not to manipulate the weather for the USA. Its real purpose is to manipulate the weather for other countries, which now you can understand why it's in Alaska. That's an easy way to send things over to Europe. They know exactly what speed and frequency to make it, which areas it's going to go into. And the other thing is the weather, how this is so weird. Okay, I don't really understand this, but the frequency there's some sort of magnetic frequency that's inserted within the weather system. They can then change that frequency within the storm, even though it's not around this device. I say device like it's small. It's not small, they're big. So even though it's not around this like tower thing, as it moves away off of the shores of the USA, and it's, they can still crank it up. Um, but what this hurricane was, that was the manipulation like over water, and it just got completely out of control. That's so crazy. Were people
So,
killed?
oh yeah, absolutely.
Hmm.
Yeah, we don't have a total death count now because I mean, when it happened, it took out all of the communications, all internet, obviously all power. So like there was no way for information to get in and get out. And like everything just kind of broke down immediately. So we really don't have the media. I feel like they're putting out a lot of propaganda as well, in my opinion, around this. Can you ask if the Mexican media around this, were they suppressing information or creating false stories at all?
Were the Mexican media printing false stories? Well, yeah, I mean, I'm getting a guess. Well, why were they? Yeah, but they're also told what to report,
Right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
the information isn't really coming from, you know, eyewitness accounts as far as the media is concerned. It's, oh, this is what happened.
Yeah. I mean, like, I know people here in Mexico that, watch the news and, the day after asking them what happened, they watched the news and they said, oh, there was nobody killed. I was like, really? According to who?
Oh.
So I think that, now they're reporting that there are deaths, but I believe they're underreporting most likely. Um,
So I have to ask a question. Do the cartels control the media?
yes,
They the cartels do control the media. Now, because I don't understand the whole concept of a cartel anyway. Um, is the cartel like, is it cartels versus the government, or do they seem to work in conjunction? Because I get that there's overlap.
oh yeah, there's definitely overlap in some
Okay.
cases where they oppose each other and they work together. And when we speak about that, there's different factions, obviously, depending on what area you're in and like who controls what. So some areas they're working together, some areas they're opposed. So yeah, it's definitely it's whole, like imagine like the political landscape, and then this on top of it. It's a whole different dynamic.
So the cartels are similar to like a justice system, or
Could be in some cases, yeah. I mean, it's when you say that, it's like there's so much nuance to it, right? It's not so like black and white. There's a lot of different cliques and levels of power that they have in different groups, right? So I don't know.
hmm.
I'm not an expert on it to be honest, but I just know that it's very, it's complicated for sure.
Hmm.
Um, okay, so the technology that the Mexican government was using on this boat, can we ask Tesla, is that anything to do with like 5G frequencies?
No,
So it's not on that wavelength at all.
no, it's more sophisticated than that.
It's more sophisticated than that. So is there any kind of like name for the technology you could pull?
I'm not good at pulling names.
Or could we ask Tesla like what is the technology? Maybe we get just so I get some sort of clue. Maybe I can pull some questions from something that comes.
it it's some sort of atmospheric manipulation technology.
So
Excuse
they're
me.
sending radiation into the atmosphere. Um, what levels of are they high frequency?
Very high, yes.
Okay. So is it higher than 5G frequencies?
Much higher.
Much higher. Okay. All right. Okay. And so this is, the technology that they developed, or did they get this from another country?
Did they get this from another country? No, they developed it, which is why it went so badly.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Made in Mexico. Okay, I gotcha. Gotcha. Okay. Um, all right. So so we've established that I think pretty well now. I want to ask Tesla about if there's rumors that he actually did some maybe inadvertent or maybe it was on purpose weather modification with his Wardenclyffe tower. So on my screen, I have a picture. I have some pictures of Wardenclyffe. For those that don't know, he built this as a wireless energy transmitter. So he'd be able to use this for powering, drawing in energy from the atmosphere to power, electricity for cities, and then also he used it as a telecommunications tower as well. That's what it was going to be set up as also. So can we ask Tesla, did he ever inadvertently or on purpose like modify the weather, like tornadoes or anything like that, or storms?
Accidentally or on purpose ever modify the weather? No.
So this had no effect on weather systems when it was operational.
Did it have effect on weather system? No, because he would make sure that it was clear.
Okay.
He knew the power of this thing.
Okay. Well, that kind of shoots down my questions for that.
Sorry.
No, that's all good. So so I want to then ask, let's bring back the U.S. military then.
Okay.
They said that you pulled that there was 12 other occasions where they modified hurricanes.
At least a dozen, yeah.
At least a dozen. Was one of them Katrina?
Ooh, Sandy was one. Excuse me. You Sandy was definitely one. Was Hurricane Katrina one? No. Funnily enough, Hurricane Katrina was not one. They knew that it was powerful anyway. And I'm saying, but could you not get in there and like turn down the frequency and try to move it in a different direction or slow it down? And at that point, it was too late.
Mm. That's a good question. Actually, that was one of my questions too. Is are they ever? This is obviously a weapon, but can they reduce the hurricane to save damage, or can they steer it out of the way?
They do that all the time.
Oh, they do. Okay.
Mm.
So what is the use case for then, having it hit the United States then, like when they're using it as a weapon on their own, population? Like what's the goal for that? Is it just testing?
Yeah, it's basically experimentation. It is. Yeah.
So there's no like other motives beyond just experimenting beyond that.
Are there any other motives beyond that? No, not at this point. No.
And so they have then steered stuff out of the way, I guess, in the United States that, on the other end of the spectrum, they've actually saved population centers from being hit.
Yes, they've turned them down. They've turned down the power within these storms. They've even been able to disperse them into smaller storms, um, and divert them. Yes, and this happens frequently. But this is not something that they can talk about because then they have to admit that they have weapons, weather weapons, and how they can affect other people. Then they could, when other places do experience bad weather, they can then turn around and say, well, it's the US's fault. They did this, they did that. So that's why this thing is like top secret.
So I also read that back in the 50s, I think there was a treaty that was signed between the United States and Russia not to use weather weapons internationally. However, the treaty did not cover their own populations. So, by whether that was by design or not, they were still allowed to, experiment within their own country with the weather weapons and not break the convention. Can you ask the Air Force if that is correct?
Is that a correct statement to say that you have a treaty between them? That is correct, yes. But Russia uses weather weapons all the time.
Right. Okay. So, what other countries have this technology that can deploy it? What other superpowers?
Well, Japan has it, Korea, North Korea, North Korea.
Whoa, that's not.
Yeah.
Okay.
Uh,
What level does North Korea have? Like, what can they? What kind of damage could they do?
they can do massive damage.
So just so they, but obviously the United States knows about that, and North Korea knows the United States knows, right?
Yes, and this guy is unstoppable. When his mind, Kim Jong Un, when his mind is made up to carry out and do something, he'll do it. Um,
But he's
he
afraid to.
actually, sorry, he actually gets a lot of pleasure out of hurting people. So
Hmm.
right now he hurts his own people. That really, there's something obviously very wrong with him. Therefore, he controls his anger by hurting his own population as opposed to, other nations. But he could wipe a lot of people out.
And he's stopped from doing that on a world scale because he knows that he would be wiped out by the United States, right?
Yeah, ultimately that would just be it. They would just nuke the whole place. Yeah.
Okay, I'd actually like to go and do a probe on North Korea. I think that'd be fascinating because it's something we really don't get to see. It's something that's hidden from us quite, the modern times and era. So I think that'd be a good probe to do. Uh,
Hmm.
okay, so you said Japan has it. How about China? I'm assuming they would.
Weather weapons. They do, but they don't like to use that stuff. What about Iran? Iran does. Saudi Arabia does. What about any South America and Brazil?
So I'm guessing that it's not like too hard. You know what I mean? It's not too hard to come up with this stuff because it's pretty widespread. It's not like as difficult as obtaining nuclear weapons. Maybe it's probably pretty easy.
Um, so it isn't, but what is so interesting is they all had to steal it from one another.
So is
I'm
all
like, how
espionage?
did they? Sorry,
Is all espionage? They got how it got spread around.
mostly, yeah.
And where was it? Would it start in Russia and United States? Is that where it started?
Where did it start first, the U.S. or Russia? It started in Japan first.
Oh, really? Interesting. Okay, what time frame was that? When did they start working on it?
Around the 30s.
Interesting. Okay. All right. And was that used in World War II at all by then?
They no, they wanted to. They wanted to because if there was a potential invasion, they wanted to create these massive storms or, hurricanes or events in the water that would prevent people or militaries invading Japan.
Wow. Well, that obviously didn't happen. Interesting. Yeah, I wouldn't have guessed that it started there, but yeah, that's interesting.
Isn't it? Because I was surprised by that answer as well.
Okay. Now we've talked about like hurricanes mostly here. What other types of weather can be modified? Can they do earthquakes as well?
They can, but it's not as effective.
No. Okay.
They can do snowstorms, blizzards. That's very effective if you're thinking in terms of military and stopping the enemy. A lot of stuff over water. Apparently, it's easier to do things over water.
Hmm. Okay. Actually, I have a question. Okay, so all right, there's another probe that I want to do, and now that we're getting this information, I think it could be part of the story. Now, I don't want to get flagged on YouTube, so I'm going to try and come up with a way to say this. People will know, hopefully, and get it. But I can still, we can still do the probe. So like 20 years ago ish, there was an event that happened on in the United States, and it was an event that was televised around the world. Everybody knows where they were when it happened. It may have started, the month may have started with an S.
Oh, right. Yes, that big event. Yes.
Right. Okay, so a lot of people don't know this, but on that fateful day, off the coast of New York, there was a hurricane, and it was sitting in a pattern that there wasn't any rain on that day. It was if you look at the weather reports for that day from the airports in New York, it was a completely clear and sunny day. When the plane stopped flying, obviously at some point, there was no contrails in the sky. It was like completely open, right? Yet, apparently, when you look back at the meteorological, I can't speak, data for that day, there was a small hurricane that was sitting off the coast, just far enough that there wasn't any, storm surge or rain or anything like that. Although I think Heathrow Airport recorded that there was some lightning off in the distance. And can we ask if that hurricane on that day that sat off the coast, was that being steered or controlled?
Was that hurricane on the coast or off the coast of New York that day? Was that too?
Was it being manipulated?
Was it? Yes, it was.
Okay. All right. So was that being used as an energy source?
Was that an energy source? No.
What was the intention of that for that hurricane?
It was a weapon. It was a weapon. I feel that they potentially had a warning about September, the date. Sorry.
Hmm. Okay, they had a warning about it, so was it being used, or did it have plans to be used in some way on that day because of that event that happened?
Yes, but they thought they didn't realize how it was going to be orchestrated.
Okay. Okay, so was it going to be used as a weapon to hit the United States?
It was really, they weren't sure how it was going to happen. Um, they weren't sure how they were going to use it exactly. It was there if they needed to.
Okay. All right. Well, I'd like to do another probe on that and that event because I'm obviously bringing that up because I think it's connected to something that happened there, and may or may not be the case, but at least we know it was man-made, so it wasn't just there was something going on there. So I'd like to do another probe on that. So we got a couple probes out of this one to do at least.
You know what was so interesting about that also is that we can't talk about. There was a particular building that fell that nobody talks about.
Yep. Number 7.
And I don't know how we would even approach that.
I'm gonna have to brainstorm on that because I do want to do it. And if we have to use code words, we'll do it.
We probably will. I actually did a probe on that before, and I can't remember what I got many moons ago, and that channel was pulled down. So it really we have to be so careful.
Yeah, we'll figure out a way to do it because I have a lot of questions about that because I know a lot about that incident. Um, okay, so we're about 40 minutes in here. I think we may be able to wrap this one up, although I think we need to come back and cover this topic again because there's just a lot of events that have been mysterious in the last 20 years that I know about that are connected with weather that I kind of want to look into a little bit deeper now that we know that this is a thing and it's real.
Mm,
And
yeah.
also too, our listeners out there, they can submit questions on this topic. Please, Liz has a submission form on her website, and you can go there and submit your questions for this topic, and I'll be happy to answer those when we do another one. And also if you're on the Discord as well. But it's preferred that you go through the website, right, Liz?
Yes, it is, just because it's more organized, and then I can immediately send it off to one of the interviewers. I just like, oh, okay, that's an interesting topic. I don't necessarily read all the questions, but I'll send it off to the interviewers, and then if they want to, do it, they do it.
All right, well, this one's
For
mine.
sure. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, this one's yours. Yeah. But this was, that was the first time I ever got information through regarding that big event on the USA soil, that they were warned. I'd never gotten that before. They knew that there was an attack coming. They just weren't sure how it was going to be carried out. Did they know that it was going to be that particular area? Yes, they assumed it was.
Yeah. Oh, I got a lot of questions about that.
Oh my goodness. Well,
So
let's structure them in a way that it's all code. So,
for sure. All right, well, let's not get this one taken down because I want this one to go out.
all right. And if you want to connect with Mr. Photon, please reach out to him via email, digitalfreedomtactics@protonmail.com. Of course, he's always on the Discord, very active, patreon.com/remote viewing and beyond. Thanks so much. This was so interesting.
Yeah, it was a good one. And don't forget, folks, you can buy me a coffee or buy me lunch with my tip jar, which will be down in the comment section.
Excellent. Yes, please do that. He works so hard. They all do. They all do. So thank you.